want to talk about EMFs for a minute because those are health robbers. It's bad enough that we're bombarded with poor food, toxins, stress, stuff in our water, stuff in our shampoo. It's just everywhere. But EMFs are something that really we've only had for a very short period of time that we are on Earth, but they are posing huge challenges. I mean, there's natural electromagnetic frequencies in nature like solar flares, for example, or lightning. But the EMFs today are far beyond what you would find in nature. So our bodies have the same stress responses to EMFs like they would any other toxin. It decreases our body's ability to repair DNA. And when we can't repair DNA, we basically die. Our bodies need to be able to communicate cells need to be able to communicate with each other, with other cells. We need to be able to keep the lines of communication open. And if our DNA gets damaged, then our cells get the wrong message. And sometimes that message is disease. So they are really health robbers. Where do we get EMFs? Well, anything that plugs into a light socket. A light socket is an EMF. It sends out electromagnetic frequencies. Your computer, your cell phone, your lights, anything, your toaster, your microwave, anything that you plug in. Remember, we are electrical beings. So you can't destroy electricity. You can only change its form. So anything like that is going to affect us somehow. So we have to be able to do whatever we can to protect ourselves from these EMFs. It's like wearing a bulletproof vest in a gun storm. You really need to protect yourself. Now, chronic exposure, which is repeated exposure over a long duration of time at even low levels of radiation, kind of like what you get from your cell phone, can cause a variety of cancers, impair your immunity. I mean, all kinds of issues can crop up from excessive EMF that's on a continual basis. One of the things I really want to point out for women is do not put your cell phone in your bra. So many cases of breast cancer can be attributed to the EMFs going into the body at the site of the breast. And I see young girls doing it all the time. I literally want to stick my hand down their shirt and pull that cell phone out of their bra because that is such a dangerous practice. So maybe you're feeling good right now. I don't put my cell phone in my bra. I keep it in my pocket. Well, that's too close for comfort too. Why don't we just put the damn cell phones down for the day and check them repeatedly throughout the day, but try not to carry it on your person because you're bombarding your body and sending incorrect signals to your cells all day long when that phone is in your pocket. Nothing is worth that. It really, really isn't. And men have to be really careful to not put the cell phone in their pocket because if you want to have kids, you don't want to ruin your reproductive health or cause cancer or a problem there. And that is exactly what could happen. So EMFs are really, really, really bad for our health. Using the microwave, all of those things, they're really, really bad for our health. If you have to microwave something on occasion, go ahead. But I think it's a better idea, maybe you will too, is just to bring food that is as live as you can, like a salad to work with maybe some chicken or avocado or something on it that you don't have to heat up. And save cooked meals for when you can cook on the stove and not have to use the microwave. An MSNBC article stated that it doesn't matter what cell in the body we're talking about. It could be an islet cell in the pancreas or, to signal insulin, or a white blood cell that's getting ready to go to the site of an injury. Wherever that is, we are electrical beings, and all of this is an electrical charge, and it basically hijacks the communication between your cells. And when there's poor cell communication, there's going to be damage to the body. So, all of this kind of electro smog could definitely be affecting insulin and, shutting off the call of the immune system. And I think precipitating a lot of the autoimmunity that we see today, which is something that I myself had to suffer from for many, many, many years. So I really try to do the best I can with this, but there is so much more that we can do. If you want to protect yourself from the computer, there are things you can plug into that to mitigate some of that EMF damage. They also have little diodes that get stuck to your cell phone that will mitigate some of the cell phone damage and EMFs from the cell phone. They also have a diode you can wear around your neck to help protect you from EMFs. You can sleep grounded, meaning there's certain mats that you can put on your bed and plug it into the wall and pull away some of those EMFs. But if you sleep even close to your light sockets, you can be getting those all night long. And if the modem is on in your house, in your room, that type of thing, if you have the computer and the modem in your bedroom, that's emitting EMFs overnight. But one of the worst things is, and if you have one of these, have it removed, is a smart meter. Those smart meters have caused more health challenges in people that I know, and health coaches that have clients. They have shared the stories of what has happened to their clients with cancers and illnesses and crazy stuff, because the EMF force is so tremendously amplified when you have a smart meter on your house. So just some things to think about when we really want to clean up our bodies. We have to clean up some of the things on the outside too, and not just the inside. So how do you clean up your body from EMFs? I mean, if you wanted to detoxify your body, there's lots of ways to do it. But how do we know that we're really getting rid of those EMFs that are causing us health problems? And, we're trying to put those electrons in as good as we can, but the damage is being done at twice as fast a rate. So, the toxins, the pollutants, the chemicals all causing this free radical damage are causing an imbalance in the protons and electrons, basically, in the body. We are more geared towards working off electrons. And all of this free radical damage causes more protons. So we want to try to get rid of the protons and gain more electrons, those negatively charged electrons, because they're essential to life and health. So one of the best ways to do that is something as simple as connecting to the earth. Animals do it all the time. They're always barefoot on the ground. And we have lost that connection since we started to wear shoes, and especially rubber-soled shoes, because rubber soles are really poor conductors of electricity. They don't allow for that exchange between us and the ground. Well, how does that really work? Walking on the ground can help us remove EMFs from our body and the negative protons that has created? Absolutely. The way that works is like this. The earth is negatively charged. Electricity is negatively charged. So when we get lightning strikes thousands of times a minute to the earth, that is all negative charge into the earth and full of electrons. The earth is abundant in electrons. Now, we used to be abundant in electrons, but for the most part, we actually are losing them, and we just can't replace them fast enough. So how do we get a really good dose of electrons and kind of release that negative proton energy? With grounding. If you've ever walked on the beach or in the forest, and there's just such a calming effect when you've got your toes in the sand or your feet in the water, the beach always makes us feel great. And one of the reasons for that is light and light to the eye, the salt from the earth, the salt from the ocean, okay, better conductor, and we're grounded. Our feet are on the ground, and when our feet are on the ground, that is literally pulling a lot of those negative, I should say not negative, those positive protons from the body, and it's giving us electrons. So there's an exchange that goes on between us and the earth. I think Mother Earth is a great way to put it, because that is what she does. She basically nurtures us and our livelihood. So just something as simple as walking on the grass barefoot or the ground barefoot is great. Maybe 5 to 10 minutes, twice a day, and you will find yourself feeling a whole lot better, and you'll be detoxifying in one of the most natural ways that there is. Now, if you have high blood pressure, this should be of special importance to you, because Dr. Steven Sinatra typically recommends grounding and earthing as a first line of defense before medication to his patients. Diet and grounding are the two things he typically recommends. And if you really can't fathom how electric our bodies are and how that really works, I invite you to watch the link I've provided on YouTube that says Clint Ober demonstrates grounding. And what you will see in this video is Clint Ober and Dr. Joe Mercola, who's one of the biggest health advocates on the planet. He's got the biggest health website there is. His website is a wealth of information. But he and Clint Ober demonstrate the charges of the human body and how grounding can actually help change that and help give us more electrons and pull out that positive charge. So it's a nice little demonstration, and will help it kind of solidify, I think, in your mind. Now, there was a study by Interphone, and the study really targeted heavy users of cell phones to see what kind of damage was there and what was the amount of exposure somebody would need before they saw ill effects. And they did eventually acknowledge that heavy users of cell phones had more chances of getting brain tumor, especially it's called glioma or glioblastoma. And that is a brain tumor that is pretty much mostly fatal. It's very, very difficult to get past that type of a tumor. And what they're seeing is after 10 years of cell phone use, what would be considered a heavy user. And what was the most amazing thing is that their definition of a heavy user was someone who used a cell phone 2.5 hours per month. So you can see that we are going way beyond that now. So if you limit cell phone use to when you actually use the cell phone, just don't keep it on your person. It really, really does cause an awful lot of damage. And there is another interesting interview with Dr. Derva Davis here on brain tumors, DNA damage, and more on earthing and grounding if you want to check that out. I just provided you some resources, but you can certainly Google it and you'll get a lot of good stuff. So now that leads me to the L in the Fueled program, and the L is for leptin. Now, I talk a lot about insulin because insulin and blood sugar go hand in hand, but actually the master maestro hormone here in all of this is leptin. Now, if you haven't heard of leptin, then this might be your first exposure to it. This is going to be very interesting for you because leptin really starts the process of insulin signaling. So here's kind of how it works. We talked about the importance of the light in your eye, right? And those circadian rhythms that create a cascade of either health or sickness. So when we get that light to our eye, there's something that occurs in the retina that involves DHA, which I know you've heard of. DHA is very important for brain health. It's very critical for life. But it starts a cascade of signaling that talks to all other body systems and functions. It decreases glucose-stimulated insulin secretion. It increases your heart rate. It's good for bone density. It regulates the menstrual cycle, appetite and metabolism, immunity, and blood pressure. So if you're somebody who's awake all night and they're sleeping all day, blood pressure is probably going to be one of the first things you will see increase as your health begins to go awry. So it is really important that we get that light in the eye, we have that good breakfast, and we get that leptin signaling going as best we possibly can. Now, a lot of people have a dysregulated leptin system. There's leptin is broken. If you're insulin resistant, you're probably leptin resistant, and you might know by having increased hunger and cravings, like uncontrollable cravings for sweets. You just can't seem to get full. Those are some signals that your leptin is probably off. And I'm going to give you just a few quick ways that you can get it back on track, but I also have a video where I talk about it a lot, so I'm going to make reference to that. The AM sunlight to the retina has to be the most important thing ever. Even if you don't understand it, understand that it's important, okay? And unless you really need the sunglasses because you're driving and you're going to kill somebody because you can't see, you want to try to get as much sunlight to your retina as you can, because lots of important things happen there, and signals that go to our body and communication all starts there. So that's the first thing, light to the retina. Now what I do is I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I start working, on email, or I'm writing an article, or whatever it is I'm doing. And I will literally take a light. I have one right here and one right here. And this one is a small one, but this will work just as good. If you don't have a bigger one, I have a really big one that actually has as much light as daylight. This one here has 3,000 lumens, and they're about, 35 to 80 bucks. You get a nice light. Or you can just use the natural spectrum light and just look in it, straight in it for, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and you'll be good for the day. Just get that cycle going. The next thing that will help reset leptin after the light in your eye is going to be to have a diet that's high in fat and moderate protein and no carbohydrates in the morning. That does a lot of different things, but again, it's all about signaling. Remember, food isn't just food to eat because it's food and it fills you up. Food is information. And protein and fat at breakfast and no carbs is going to start sending a really good signal to your body now that you've got the light in your eye. Meal timing and snacking is definitely a huge part of a leptin reset, or as I call it, a caveman reset. Typically, we want to try to eat within a specific eating window of an hour. So let's say you do have 3 meals a day, a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. Okay, 3 meals. If you want to snack on nuts or some dark chocolate or a small bunch of berries, not in the morning, you want to do those within a half an hour of mealtime. So if you're eating at noon, you can have those berries at 11:30 or 12:30 after you eat, but within that window. So we're not continuously spiking insulin all throughout the day. We're trying to reset leptin, and leptin ties to that sugar and insulin response. So in order to reset it, no matter how hungry you are, you have to not eat in between meals, especially after your last meal at night. So there's more about that in the video as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So if you want to watch that, I have included the link, or you can go to YouTube and Biohacking Wellness and search Caveman Reset. And then intermittent fasting included in that when you feel ready. So that would be where if your last meal is at 7 p.m., you would go at least 12 hours to 7 a.m., or even longer to 11 or 12 before you eat your first meal. All of those things will go a long way towards resetting leptin. I wouldn't, again, encourage you to go right into these types of protocols without weaning down on your carbohydrates first, which you could do by watching my video called Biohacking Blood Sugar, which just talks about weaning down the carbohydrates. And then after a couple of weeks, when you feel like your hunger and cravings have subsided a bit, now you can start with the meal timing. Now, when you do a leptin reset, you will notice that you will sweat a lot after you eat. It's very common. Don't worry about it. It's just telling you that you're on the right track. It is really nothing to worry about. So I appreciate your watching tonight. That is our training. That is the importance of all of those things other than food, or maybe even more important than food. Our next training next Wednesday night at 7:30 is on exercise. What kind, what type, how much, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, because there is definitely something everyone can do to, again, increase glutathione and also burn a little extra fat and get ourselves healthy. So if you need to reach out to me for questions, Sandra@biohackingwellness.com is where you can email me and I will answer your questions. Take a look at those videos and links that I provided. Until next week, thank you for watching. Have a great evening.